interestingly, the DVD has images that started in 1992 when we were on a beach in Florida near Pensacola, and we had 40 or 50 people out for a workshop, and we had 4 extraterrestrial vehicles materialize in the air very close to us. At that time, we didn't have these wonderful, almost fourth-generation night scopes, hooked digital cameras. It was the old high-8 cameras. So, but still, you can see these objects. And I started making a triangle in the sky with a light that I had, a very bright light, and the craft made a triangle in the sky. And then when we were signaling to these craft, and they were signaling back, and while all this was going on, there was a sort of dematerialized ET presence that was sort of what we call sort of etheric or astral energies. That's an extraterrestrial electronic projection, sort of like a hologram that came into the parking lot. And you could actually see the figures of these ET beings moving around us there by the beach. We were by a state park in Florida at the time. And it turns out there were 3 Air Force officers there who had been pilots, and they were just astonished, and 5 or 6 different videotapes and photographs. And the next day it was on the front page of the Pensacola paper that this had happened. Someone, not from our group, but at another location, saw this event happening and photographed it. And so that is on this DVD, starting way back in 1992, March of 92, things all the way through up to and including events that just happened this summer on our expeditions in Mount Shasta and Crestone and other places. So I think you'll find it very interesting to see these encounters and photographs and hear the tones that have come from the ET technologies that we've recorded, as well as the tones that we've gotten from Colin Andrews, who was a keynote speaker at the conference. And he unveiled some things that I think were really amazing. I know for the first time he spoke of some things that he had never shared publicly. And Linda, you may want to comment on some of those.
Some of the things he shared were the interactivity between he and his team, Busty Taylor, and I don't remember all of the men on the team, but they were talking about this was in the early days of crop circles when they were just beginning to form, and they were quite simplistic at that time. They were just round or something, or sometimes like sort of a round circle with like a halo around it. And they started talking about, well, what if these could be combined, and the design could be combined, and it could make this somewhat more elaborate design, and then they'd talk about that among themselves, and then the next day that would appear in a field right near one of their homes. And so they had a number of these interactive experiences that happened to them over the course of the first several years of their crop circle research, and he has pictures of all of that, and it was really amazing.
And also on one account, Colin Andrews is a very dear friend and a brilliant man and a sincere man. There was one account where he was just beginning to investigate the crop circles, and he said a little prayer and he said, God, will you show me what this is and show me that this is real? And right near where he was living in a field, a very important crop circle appeared literally that night. And so there's a lot of it. And so I call these crop circle CE5s, close encounters of the fifth kind. And a close encounter of the fifth kind is a term that I coined in 1990 to describe when humans invite contact as opposed to just accidentally seeing an ET craft or a UFO or passively being observant of an event that happens. A CE5 is a very unique, empowering category of contact where it isn't an accidental event. It's an intended event that the humans have prepared themselves to invite. And it can be very subtle. It can just be as much as wishing for, asking for some manifestation or some evidence, and the ETs will do it. But it has to be done from a point of purity of heart and detachment and sincerity. And that's the state Colin Andrews was in when he asked for this, and it happened. And not long after that, I went over to England, and in 1992, on my first expedition, and I took a team up on Woodborough Hill which is near Alton, which was the epicenter of where the great pictograms, the great pictoglyphs that were gorgeous, complex shapes that were appearing at that time. And Woodborough Hill is surrounded by this farm that Tim and Polly Carson had, that about 1,800-acre farm that we were allowed to use for our research and for contact. And one night we decided, there were about 12 of us, I think, and we decided to go up on top of Woodborough Hill, which was a tall hill overlooking this whole region. And we decided, after we got up there, a shape that we would ask the ETs to make. And we all, no one in the whole world knew what this shape was. And we decided, I actually saw it in my mind's eye, a equilateral triangle, which was 3 circles connected by lines that made a perfect equilateral triangle. So we actually went into deep meditation using the CSETI protocols. And the protocols we use is to go into this deep state of quiet meditation, and then to remote view space and the ET civilizations and their spacecraft, and then we transmitted this form to them, this specific crop circle shape, and asked them to please, if they could, to make that shape appear in a field nearby. And sure enough, the next morning, in fact, at 5 in the morning or so, a farmer within line sight of where we were at a place called Oliver's Castle, which is a cliff, actually. It's not an actual castle. It's a big rock outcropping. He was out in his field and saw this crop circle.
We had been visualizing precisely this formation, and we had been making a triangle in the sky with the circles, and this is what has appeared in this area immediately related to that event.
And it had manifested very quickly from the time we were up there at midnight until he saw it at 5 o'clock. And no one knew, except the group that was sitting there with us, that this was the shape we were sending to the ETs. And it was made that very night, and it was precisely and exactly what we had projected mentally to the ETs. And that's when I realized that the ETs can interface with us in ways that are really amazing in their precision. Because in this case, and then after I shared this story, I had learned from Busty Taylor and Colin Andrews and others that they had had this same event happen, where they had, Busty Taylor had just sort of whimsically said, God, wouldn't it be great if all the different shapes of the crop circles that have appeared to date would appear in one crop circle? And it did. It happened literally that night, as if someone was listening.
Right.
And so what I tell people is that, it seems quite mysterious until you understand that transdimensional technologies that allow you to communicate faster than the speed of light, are doing so through consciousness, through the astral and etheric energies, through visualization. And these what is thought? Thought is energy. Thought is something. And these technologies that the ETs have interface with that if it's very clear and very coherent. So you literally have what I've called consciousness-assisted technologies and technology-assisted consciousness, where technology can assist an individual's mind to remote view, for example, or you can have your own consciousness interface with the technology to manifest something or to communicate and transmit information across the vastness of space, because the speed of light is too slow. You cannot, our nearest galaxy is Andromeda, which is 2.5 million light years away. And so at the speed of light, to have a two-way conversation there would be 5 million years. It's just way too slow. And that's going at the speed of, cell phones and radio waves and telescopes and anything in the electromagnetic spectrum. So you're dealing with transdimensional reality, and with that you're instantly into this, everything that what I call that goes through the crossing point of light. And this new book goes into this in 1,000 different ways, all the different experiences that Linda and I and Sherry and Dr. Loader and Dr. Bravo and all the team and all the thousands of people we've been training have had all over the world doing these contact protocols, which are rooted in the understanding of what is existing beyond the crossing point of light. And it's quite clear in talking to people like Colin Andrews that many of the people who have been researching and who took it, because he's an electrical engineer, who's taken it from a purely linear scientific perspective to start with, quickly come up against this, what Dr. J. Allen Hynek, the Air Force astronomer for Project Blue Book, used to call high strangeness, which is the heart of the mystery here, but it's also the heart of the lesson, and that is these interstellar civilizations are using technologies that are interfacing with thought and consciousness in a transdimensional fashion. And so that's what we're experiencing, and that's really what was beautiful about this special lecture that Colin Andrews gave, was that he shared not only his contact experience at a young age with an extraterrestrial craft that had landed behind his home, and which he actually left a ring, a sort of a proof of that is there to this very day.
A ring in the grass.
Yeah, ring in the grass that you can see.
50 years later.
Yeah, it is. It's over 50 years later. You can still see it. And he shared his contact that he had back when he was 5 years of age, and then the crop circle events happening, as he discovered later, that were in that same area of England. And also the mystery of the triangle, the triangular form, that there's sort of a triangle of events that he described in this lecture. We hope to have it on a DVD that is a geographical area that includes Stonehenge, but is in that area of England where the epicenter of all these crop circles have been, and it makes another CSETI triangle, as we call it, a perfect equilateral triangle. And this motif of a triangular shape keeps coming up, and it's something very elemental and rather an archetype, a sort of sacred archetype form. And he sort of connected that form in the CSETI triangle to a larger geographical area that makes a perfect triangle, where all these crop circles have been occurring, and not just crop circles, UFOs, materialized spacecraft. He showed pictures recently near Silbury Hill, where we've done a lot of our work, of a craft that looks very similar to the craft that's on the DVD that we're making available with this new book that Raven took off of the Outer Banks in just this past May of 2009, flying right by Silbury Hill. It looked almost exactly like the disk actually that landed in the field, because in 1992, the same year that we created the CSETI triangle mentally and had the crop circle, the ETs make one in the crop circle, we had about 100-foot diameter disk land or hover 10 feet above the ground in a field that we were in at this same farm near Woodborough Hill in Alton Barnes. And this same craft, or one that looks very similar to it, has just been photographed near Silbury Hill. And near there also, there's a policeman who saw a couple of ETs that were very tall, slender, in sort of white robes and hoods in a crop circle field, or in a field, checking things out. And when he stopped and went into the field, they moved at such speed and actually left some evidence in the crop circle, in the crop of where they had run, and left some evidence there. And this is quite a case. And so Colin Andrews presented all of this that's been going on in 2009 this year in the crop circle. So that's a very exciting lecture that we hope to have available on a DVD fairly soon. And also all of the sort of interactivity through thought and consciousness, including the tones, which, you may want to comment.
Right. Before I get to the tones, these crop circle CE5s are still occurring to this day, and Colin Andrews took a lot of flack a number of years ago when he pointed out that a large percentage of crop circles were human-made, and people didn't want to accept that. But what he's found since then is that a lot of these human-made crop circles CE5s, and in fact, it's happened on several occasions when people were planning the design that they were going to make in the field, and for whatever reason didn't get out there that night to do it, and the very next day that exact design that they just had in mind was already in the field, by the unknown source, the ETs. So that is still continuing to this day. And then the tones that he recorded, Colin Andrews recorded the crop circle tones that we've used on CSETI trainings ever since. And these tones are still occurring to this day. To the point,
recently in a tree.
Right, recently, yeah, like they're emanating from trees and bushes and are audible. And what's interesting, he had a tree trilling tone that he played that sounded very similar to the looped recording of a tone that we heard in Mount Shasta in 2005 that our musician, our CSETI musician, Charlie Baylog, enhanced the sound and looped it to make it longer, and it sounds very much like Colin Andrews' tree trilling tone, which he just taped the audio from a tree that was near a crop circle.
Yeah, it was near that, and it was almost like, of course, the tree effect was interesting. It was like the tree was some sort of antenna, electromagnetic field antenna, like we had the Joshua tree a couple years ago that was vibrating and moving back and forth as if it was pulsating to some kind of invisible energy field, and all of us went up to it and actually could feel it moving. It almost felt like it had a sort of a resonant heartbeat to it.
Right.
So that was a couple of years ago.